this is Ingvar. I'm going to have another look at a Slovenian player called Albin Planinc. I already looked at one of his games on my channel, a game which I thought was quite spectacular, and it's only recently that I got to know this player, and I've been fascinated by many of his games, and this was one of them. He had the black pieces. He played one of my favorite openings. In the game we already looked at, he played e5, and we had a Spanish very interesting variation with bishop c5, but here he goes for the French. His opponent, Rajko Bogdanovic, goes for knight c3, and we have bishop b4, of course the most uncompromising answer to knight c3. Now this game was played in 1965, and after e5, the main line for black here is to play c5, but Planinc goes with queen d7. Now this was a line that was more popular back in the day. The likes of Petrosian would play in this manner. We see after bishop to d2, black goes b6, and quite often the idea is to exchange the bishop, but the way black plays it here, it's a close position. I want to see two more moves, knight h3, knight c6, and after a3, black doesn't take on c3, which is quite normal in the Winawer, but usually to give white a double pawn. But instead the bishop goes back to f8. Now why can he do that? Well, when you put the bishop on b4, if you go back, originally there was some tension in the center. But after bishop f8, the center has been closed. So the bishop kind of did its job to define the center by putting pressure on c3 and therefore indirectly e4. So white had to do something about it, so he played e5. So now the center is closed, and when the center is closed, you can take more time to sort of, you know, break the principles of development and such. So the bishop goes back to f8. First and foremost, not to lose the bishop pair on c3, but also to cover this g7 point, which can be vulnerable in case of a move like queen to g4. For the time being, d4 is under attack, which explains bishop to e3, and now bishop e7. So black's plan is to castle queenside, and we have sort of a strange King's Indian mirrored, and this is a setup that, for instance, Jobava has experimented with white, with colors reversed, by playing d4, knight c3, and then queenside fianchetto. But that's a different story. Let's get on with the game. f4, knight to a5, knight to g5. Yeah, it makes a strange impression to put the knight on h3 and not put it on f4, but white feels that okay, he will try to induce h6 and then go back to f3, where it probably stands better. After knight e7, we have bishop to f2, sort of preemptively getting out of knight f5, which would hit the bishop. Now h6, king knight back, and queenside castles. White goes with bishop d3, and once black has committed his king to the queenside, it makes sense to do something on the king side. And first, Planinc plays f5. Now white doesn't really want to take here, because we take back, and the position is opening up the king side, which would benefit black, as his king is tucked in on the other side, so white doesn't want any of that. He plays queen to e2. And, well, where does the king go? That's the question. And Planinc sees the king in the center, and that's a red flag for him. And he goes for it here with a pawn sacrifice. He plays g5. Now the action is about to begin. White accepts. He kind of has to, otherwise it would just be worse. So he takes on g5, knight takes d5. And here most people would play a move such as knight to g6, covering f7, which the knight was threatening to jump into right here, but also the knight on f4, the knight on g6 is threatening to come to f4. But as so often was the case, Planinc had other ideas, other plans, if you will. Bishop to h6. Now this is an obvious exchange sacrifice, because at the knight f7, two of your rooks are hit. So the good part is that this bishop is preventing white from castling queenside. So if white wants to castle, he has to go kingside, but the problem with that is that black will have open lines for an attack. So what to do? After knight g6, white had to grab the exchange. He went for the rook on h8. I don't think there's much difference in which rook you capture. h8 makes some sense because at least you're forcing black to do something because of this situation here. But black solved it by playing knight to f4. So is he going to play the attack down the exchange? Maybe, we'll see. Now the queen is attacked, g2 is also under fire, so white plays queen f3, taking care of both of these threats. And now, well, most people will probably take on h8, but not Planinc. He introduced another piece into the attack. This guy is sitting on the sidelines, so knight to c4 was played. Now white doesn't really want to take here with his bishop, because that will simply open up more pieces for black. The pawn will take. Now this guy becomes active, and this is a problem. And black is doing great here, actually. A monster bishop on b7. He will capture on h8, capture on d2, and be doing great. So Bogdanovic did not go for that. After knight c4, he played g3. And yeah, this is what caught my eye when looking at this game. Most people would do something with a knight, but well, where to go? You can take on d3 maybe. That would hit this knight though. Knight takes d3, c takes d3, maybe knight takes b2. But then we have some problems picking this up, so it's a little bit tricky. But Planinc found a cracker of a move that, yeah, I'm not sure I would have found such a move. But he played, pause if you want to find it, but he played knight d2, putting another piece under attack. So at the moment black is a rook down, and now white is attacking two pieces. He took with the king on d2. He accepted the challenge. When first looking at this, I wondered if something like queen d1 looked like a natural move to me. And I tried to find out without the computer what can happen here. And I came pretty close. Knight g2 seems like a very nice move. Jack to the king, he has to move to e2. And my idea here was to play queen to e8. I want to give a check here. I felt like this king doesn't have a lot of squares. And I thought, okay, white must prevent that, so maybe g4. And then I found f4. And, well, now we're threatening f3, which looks like a problem, so I thought bishop h4 make a square on f2, but everything is just falling apart here. We can take on h8, take on h4, whatever. It's gonna end in disaster for white. And this was, yeah, close to the truth, but the computer defends for white here by giving up the queen. And it's still complicated, but white should be okay here. So queen d1 was an option, but very complicated. In the game, however, white took on d2. One other option is to take on f4. Queen takes f4, give up the queen in that way. But Bogdanovic went with king takes d2. Probably not believing in black's concept. Well, he's down a rook and a bishop, so a rook and the knight. So what does he have in mind? He's also done a pawn, so that's a lot of material. Well, how can we use this discovery? He played knight takes d3. Okay. Again, a very nice idea, because king takes d3, which was not played, is met with mate in 3. Bishop a6, and look at these wonderful bishops. Closing everything down, there's no choice but to interpose the knight. Now the queen enters the fray, and queen c4 simply mates on the spot. So the knight can't be taken. So in the game he played bishop to e3. The best move turns out to be king to e2, although it's still complicated. But bishop e3 is natural, and that's what white played. And now another nice shot. Knight takes on e5. And this is actually why king e2 was a better move, because in the line after knight takes e5, the king is in the line of fire here. Let's have a look. White played queen h5, but if he takes on e5, everything opens up. d4, there's an attack on the queen moves, there's a piece behind it. Eventually we can take this, and we can take either on c3 or e3 with check, unleashing this battery. So all in all, not looking good for white. Actually, it's completely lost, and explains why knight takes e5 is possible. So Bogdanovic saw this and played queen to h5. Now knight c4 was played, check to the king, and we win the bishop on e3. And now things are looking up for black. He's only down the exchange, but he has an excellent attack. The game continued with knight f7, while he's trying to get the knight out. Rook to f8. He gets the knight out. And now knight takes e5. D takes e5 opens up this bishop, and white has been trying to avoid that the whole game, so he takes the piece on e3. The knight goes back to c4, king f2, and now queen to g7. Actually, here knight to g4 was probably the best move, and the reason for that is that it blocks the queen in a little bit, because it can't go back to d1, and we'll see in the main line why that could be an issue. Knight c4, king f2, queen to g7, hitting d4, white defended with a knight, and now yet again the knight jumps into d2. It's like, it's almost insulting that black is just making d2 like a square in his home board, like the d8 square or e8 square. This square, it's mine. I don't care if you think it's yours, it's completely mine. Queen h4, and this is the last chance for white. Perhaps Planinc, yeah, like we mentioned, knight c4 would have been good, and here rook 8 to d1 would have kept the game very interesting, with probably chances for both sides. Black would have a very strong knight on e4 and some compensation, but white is still up the exchange. However, in the game, after queen to h4, black played a very nice move. And this game is just chock full of surprising and very creative moves by black. And he played f4. This prepares to open the rook to the king. We're threatening all sorts of nasty things. If the king moves, there's f3. If it goes to an unfavorable square like here or here, there's knight f3, picking up the queen. And the problem is that the natural move, g takes f4, which was played. Note that knight takes f4 will drop the d4 pawn. So g takes f4 looks natural, and this was played, but the problem with this is rook to h8. And it turns out this queen doesn't have a square. H value is covered, this is covered, and these two are covered indirectly by a knight check. So white loses the queen, and he decided to give it up on h8. But now black is off material, and the end is near. Let's see the remaining moves. Knight c4 check, king f2. The bishop, having waited for this diagonal to open, finally just comes to this one. Rook 8 to e1, and yet again using the d2 square for the knight for the third time in the game. King e3, knight to f3, hitting the knight, the rook, and this actually sets up bishop takes e2, and a deadly discovered check. White took on e2 and resigned as he did it, as knight takes d4 is coming, with black already up tons of material, and white is actually about to be mated. So another wonderfully creative and fun attacking game by Albin Planinc. I really enjoyed this one. The 92 shot was very surprising, and he followed it up with many nice moves. I think this is a fantastic game, which I hope you enjoyed. See you later, guys. Bye bye.